what did Moses come down from Mount Sinai? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Exodus on Walking Through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Exodus 32. We're going to be reading from verses 15 to 18. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Exodus 32, beginning at verse 15. And Moses turned and went down from the mountain, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides. On the one side and on the other they were written. Now the tablets were of the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "There is a noise of war in the camp." But he said, "It is not the noise of the shout of victory, nor the noise of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear." In this chapter we have recorded for us how Israel built a golden calf to worship. It is said that the reason why they built this calf is because Moses had been up on Mount Sinai for so long that they didn't know what had become of him. A lack of patience is no excuse for going off into sin, and that's exactly what Israel did. For God had told them not to build any images to worship, not even if those images were used to worship him. To build the idol, Aaron took some of the gold jewelry of the children of Israel and fashioned it into the calf. He then made a feast day on which they could offer sacrifices to the Lord, which, because the Lord did not desire these sacrifices, weren't really made to the Lord, but to this idol. Along with the idol worship, Israel made a party out of it. Exactly what was involved at this party, we'll get to a little later. Meanwhile, up on Mount Sinai, God was finishing up with Moses the instructions concerning the building of the sanctuary and the setting up of the priesthood. These instructions concluded in chapter 31 with God telling Moses that the Sabbath was to be a reminder to Israel that God had sanctified them from among the people. For that reason, whoever profaned the Sabbath would die. Upon the completion of these instructions, God informed Moses what was going on in the camp. The God of this universe is not distracted by anything, so even though he was conversing with Moses, he knew exactly what was going on in the camp. So angry with Israel for this, yet another act of disobedience, that God told Moses that he would destroy Israel and make a great nation out of Moses. Moses pleaded with God not to destroy Israel for the sake of the covenant made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, if God had destroyed Israel here, he wouldn't have broken that covenant, for Moses was of the seed of all 3 patriarchs, but it would have delayed the fulfillment of that covenant. Due to the righteousness of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses was thus pleading with God not to allow Israel to escape without punishment, but escape without the ultimate punishment. And God heard the plea of Moses and relented from destroying Israel. Now, as we noted in the last episode, from the language of the text, we can be certain that God did intend to destroy Israel and make a great nation out of Moses. This was not merely a test of Moses' faith or a way devised by God that Moses could typify Christ, but it is also an example of how God's mind and will can be changed. People sometimes ask, well, if God knows everything that I need and therefore knows what he will do in the future, then why pray? The answer most often given is because God desires us to exercise our faith and to show our dependence on him and thankfulness towards him, allowing us to remain humble. And while that is certainly true, Jesus taught another reason in the parable of the unjust judge found in Luke 18, 1-8. He taught that persistence in prayer has the ability to cause God to act. In those cases, it's not that God didn't know what was going on, nor does it necessarily mean that he was never going to act. But it does mean that the persistence of the faithful could result in God acting sooner. All of this shows us that the future is not already written in stone and can be changed. Now, doesn't that mean that God isn't all-knowing? No, it means our definition of all-knowing is wrong. To be all-knowing simply means to know everything there is to know. It is impossible to know the unknowable. God could have certainly created a universe where everything is mapped out from beginning to end. We do that when we make video games. But he didn't do that. He made a universe in which man has full freedom of choice. Now, God is all-powerful, knows the hearts of everybody completely, and can therefore manipulate us in order to accomplish his will. But that is a far cry from everybody's future being already written for them before they were even born. Since the future is not already written in stone, is why God can hold us responsible for sin, for we choose to sin and deserve punishment. Coming now to today's reading, Moses came down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of stone. Bible readers will know specifically what is on them, but as of yet, Exodus hasn't revealed that, so we'll save that for later. What we do know, however, is that these tablets were written on both sides, and that Moses didn't chisel out of the stone to write what was on them. They were written by the finger of God. What this means is that unlike the book of Exodus, which was inspired by God but penned by Moses, these tablets were inspired by and penned, if you will, by God himself. As Moses came down, he met Joshua, who informed him that there was great noise coming from the camp, a noise of war in Joshua's opinion. Moses set Joshua straight by telling him that it wasn't a noise of war, either the noise of victory or defeat. It was the noise of song. We will see Moses' reaction to what he saw, the Lord willing, in the next episode. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Exodus chapter 32, verses 19 to 24, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not ashamed.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
Of his cross.